Well, good evening and welcome to another episode of HC Highlanders Live. I'm Jason Muker, Associate AD for Compliance and Communication, joined by our Athletic Director, Matthew Webb. And we continue to progress through a fall semester. And it sounds like I'm repeating myself every week when we talk about how this semester is so different from previous semesters. In the midst right now of practices for most of our teams. Some of our teams have wrapped up their fall practices. And there's just different things happening with some of the planning going on with for the spring, for our winter sports, and all of our teams actually for trying to get the competitive seasons in the spring. Not too much news to report along those lines. As I said, our teams and our student athletes continue to practice and prepare in anticipation of a competitive season in the spring. And I'll let Matt Webb explain a little bit more and introduce our special guest for tonight.
Yeah, thanks, Jason. So it's good to be back here again. And just a brief update. Things continue to go well. And from a conference and national perspective, the biggest thing that we're working on now is trying to finalize our plans for implementation of policies and requirements, meeting all the NCAA requirements in order to be able to compete in the spring. So, as we know nationally, testing is becoming more and more available and affordable. And so that's the direction that we're all headed in terms of being able to compete. And so those are the discussions we're having these days, is how do we make that happen, and how do we move forward with some adjustments in our schedules and so forth. But we're moving forward to making that happen. And like Jason said, all of our teams are in their practice seasons now. Actually, a couple have wrapped up. Tennis and volleyball have actually finished their window of time, and others are nearing the end. And but quite busy, and the weather has continued to stay pretty nice. So all of our outdoor sports continue to have pretty good weather, being outside, which is nice. So our guests today are from our softball program, head coach Katie Sinclair, and assistant coach and Houghton alum, 4-year player at Houghton, Taylor Trowbridge. So welcome, Katie and Taylor, and good to have you here with us today. I would like to start, and we'll go back and forth. I've got some questions for sort of each of you, but Katie, why don't we start with you? Talk with us a little bit about maybe your softball background and journey. And I know you played collegiately 4 years, just sort of right down the road from Houghton, and how you ended up at Houghton, and what you really appreciate most about coaching now, and being at Houghton.
Yeah, sure. So I grew up in Homer, New York, which is central New York, and played lots of sports in high school there. Softball was one of them, and I ended up deciding that softball was the sport that I wanted to continue with in college. And so I chose St. Bonaventure University, which is in Olean, New York, Western New York, and played softball there for 4 years. And I can't say that I really knew Houghton was here, even though St. Bonaventure is only 40 minutes away. I passed Houghton's exit on 86 a few times, but I didn't really know much about Houghton. I just knew that I was down the road. And as I was graduating from Bona's my senior year with a degree in business, I knew that I wanted to stay in collegiate sports. So I had a business degree, but I was thinking some route, whether it was coaching or athletic administration. And so I just started, researching jobs and seeing what would fit best. And I was thankful at Bona's to be part of Fellowship of Christian Athletes. And so I love just the sports ministry aspect of that group. And I was looking for a place where I could continue to be involved in sports ministry. And the Houghton job opened up, and it was the perfect mix of being able to coach, being able to be involved in the sport and collegiate athletics, and also sports ministry is all about who we are and what we do here. And so it was a great mix of what I was looking for. And I think what I love about coaching at Houghton specifically is that our faith is just involved. Our faith is who we are all the time, and it doesn't stop on the field. And it's something that our players are continuing to strive for, just excellence in who they are academically and athletically, but also in their walk with the Lord. And so it's just been a cool experience to be invested in their lives and just be a part of the Houghton community in that way.
Yeah, thanks, Katie. That's great. Taylor, going to jump to you. similar question. How'd you end up at Houghton? And obviously much more recent graduate, but you played at Houghton, not initially for Coach Sinclair, but obviously finished under Coach Sinclair. What brought you to Houghton, and what do you enjoy most about sort of continuing to be on staff and helping out with the team?
So throughout my recruiting process, like I didn't really know about Houghton until pretty late. And then it just kind of fell into my lap. Coach Reese was the original coach that recruited me, and I met with her a couple times, and I came to a clinic at Houghton, and I was like, I'm just going to be open-minded about it. And the facilities were beautiful. K-Pac is amazing. Our softball field with a tower and just like the view, especially in the fall, which is when I went for the clinic, was absolutely stunning. And it just won me over. And the minute I stepped on campus, I was like, this is home. Like, I didn't have to look anywhere else anymore. Like, I didn't have to talk to any other coaches. Like, I just knew this is where I was going to be. So I was really lucky and really blessed to be able to play 4 years at Houghton. And then last year after graduating, I was able to come back. Coach Katie asked me if I would come back and stuff like that. And I have just been so blessed to be able to give back to a program that's given me so much. I grew so much in my faith and all of my athletic ability at Houghton and through Coach Katie and stuff like that. So to be able to come back and give back to a program that has given me so much over the past 4 years, and now it's year 6, it's just every day I'm so thankful for it.
So Taylor, I want to talk with us a little bit about how that's working this year, because you're in North Carolina, you're not here in Houghton. How are you coaching and interacting with the team being away?
So I was really thankful this past, I think it was July, Coach Katie reached back out to me and was like, hey, like we have this really great opportunity, virtual pitching coach. And I was like, absolutely, without a doubt, like I'd come back in a heartbeat. And it's a lot different not being able to be on the field with the girls and stuff like that. But through the use of Zoom and being on the iPad, they can hear me. I get walked around sometimes at practice. So I have virtual legs. But it's basically the same thing that would be as if I was in person, but it's just a little bit of an added challenge that we have in 2020 this year. So,
well, I know when Katie presented that to me as an idea, my immediate gut reaction was like, well, you can't coach if you're not here. But we've all gotten used to doing all kinds of things when you're not really on site. And as we talked about, I thought, well, why not? I mean, video works. We've all gotten used to doing Zoom and doing things that way, and so I'm glad we've been able to make that work and keep you on staff. So that's been great. Katie, talk with us a little bit about how this fall has gone. What's the morale like on the team? Maybe describe sort of how practices have gone and sort of where you're at this point in your practice season.
Yeah, so this fall, obviously it's been different. Everyone's been here and just things are different around here, but we're finishing up our last week of practices this week. And so I think the beginning was the hardest. We were just getting used to mass. We were in just the phase 1 of practices. So it was small groups and, social distancing all the time. And so it's been an adjustment just from the start. But now from the last 2 weeks that we're in phase 3, we're able to wear masks and social distance still, but just do all the things we have to do in scrimmage and contact, if there's contact in softball, not as much as some of our other sports, but yeah, so it's been great and the morale's been awesome. We do a lot of the same like fun things we would every fall in terms of just like, adding some fun things to practice and also some challenging things. And the scrimmages have been going great, and the mass are kind of just, we're all used to them at this point. I'm used to coaching them. The players used to playing and running in them. So it really has been a great fall, and the weather's been amazing. So we're really thankful for that. But yeah, the team's been doing great.
And the field's been dry.
Mm-hmm.
You've been able to be outside on your field just about every day, I think. So
and no snow.
And no snow. So we're still just middle of October. So that's
yeah.
That's good. And so this is your last week, am I right?
Yep.
And so you've been able to do a little bit more interaction and some scrimmage type environment. So that's great. So Taylor, tell us about being in North Carolina. It's warmer there, but how have you been in terms of connecting with the athletes? And I would imagine you're doing more than just Zoom practice times, but in terms of building relationships with the pitchers and coaching, and when they've been doing the inter squad scrimmage, are you zoomed into that and evaluating the pitchers as they're pitching, and are you giving feedback like on the spot? How's that exactly work?
Yeah, so during the scrimmages, I'm behind home plate. Now that we're actually like a little bit more of scrimmages and not just throwing live, I'm back behind the backstop, but I can see the whole field, which I think is a huge advantage too, because it's great to see the pitchers and hit their spots, but I also need to see how the ball's coming off the bat and stuff because that tells a lot about spin. So being able to see the whole field has been really great, and it's all on Zoom. But being able to communicate with the girls through texts and independent meetings and a bunch of questionnaires, they probably are real tired of my emails, but being able just to ask them a lot more of the questions that I would ask in person, but having the opportunity to kind of take it outside of practice. So that way, when I'm with them on Zoom, it's all instruction, instant feedback, stuff like that. So that way I can get to know them and then bring it into practice. So I think it's pretty beneficial from a pitching coach standpoint being online because I can also like record the Zoom sessions and then go back and view things in slow motion and stuff like that. So the video analysis of it is a really big asset this year, I think.
Yeah, that's great. That's I think it's fun that we're doing that, and I'm glad to hear that it's working. So, so Katie, talk with us a little bit about just sort of projections for this year. Maybe review a little bit sort of how we've done in the conference in previous years. And I know this past spring, we're pretty optimistic about the potential anyway of the team, which then got cut short. But talk with us about sort of where you're at right now, maybe strengths in your team and how you're building the team in preparation for the spring.
Yeah, so the last few years, we just in conference play, we've definitely been competing a lot better. We've been in many close games, and sometimes we bring them out with W's and sometimes they're losses, but we've been competing so well, and we have ended in like the middle of the conference, not this past year but the year before, and then this past spring we were really hoping for to continue to make strides in the conference, and we did have a young pitching staff going into last spring, so I think that was one thing that we were a little weary about. But the great thing is, like, they're coming back now, this staff, and they're 1 year older. And even though we didn't get all of our games in, they made some huge strides in Florida last year. So they're all ready to, our pitching staff is young, but they're ready to use what they learned from last year and bring it into this year. So that's another reason why having Taylor back was really exciting, because she helped make so much growth with them like last spring. And so to have her back and just working with them has been really awesome. And they made really good relationships last year. So we're excited about what our pitchers are going to do. And we're expected, like I said, to compete well in the conference again. I think hitting can also always be worked on. So that's one thing that we're going to continue to work on. And the great thing about our facilities here is when it's snowing in January and February, we're going to be hitting a lot in our cages and just getting that work in the spring, and we're ready to just hit the ground running. We lost a little bit of speed last year, so I'm hoping that we can kind of make that up with just some different types of speed agility training, and also just working on getting some extra base hits. And if we're hitting the ball, then we just keep running the bases no matter how fast or slow we are. So that's the goal, I think.
Yeah, that's good to hear. I think you mentioned the facilities, and I'm reminded of how fortunate we are to have the facilities that we do. I talk with some AD colleagues of mine, and trying to make everything work these days with limited facilities is tough, with all the teams trying to be out there. And when I think about the spring, it's going to be crowded. It's going to take some creativity, but we're blessed with some pretty nice facilities to use. So that's great. So I'm going to back up a couple years. You mentioned earlier, Katie, in sort of your introduction, sports ministry is just part of who we are. It's ingrained in just the culture that we have within our teams. You went on a missions trip a couple years ago with your team. In another year or two would be eligible to potentially go again. Why don't you talk with us a little bit about that trip, where you went, and how that has maybe helped to continue to create the culture that you want, but what your team experienced and what your athletes and yourself came away with from that trip. And maybe Taylor, did you go on that trip?
I did not.
No, weren't able to go on the trip. I was going to say maybe you could add to that too. But why don't you talk with us a little bit about that trip and just sort of the outcomes of that?
Yeah, so we went to August 2019. We went to the Dominican Republic with SCORE International Ministries, and it was an amazing trip. We brought one alumni, and I think 6 or 7 players went with us. So it was a smaller group, but we were able to field a team for the most part. And it was, first of all, amazing to work with SCORE Ministries for that trip. They were just so welcoming to us and helped with so much scheduling and just keeping us safe and make sure everything that logistically was good to go. But we played a lot of softball down there, which was awesome, but we were also just able to talk about our faith and spread the gospel as much as possible. And the cool thing about that trip was we love serving in the community, in the Houghton community, and just like the surrounding communities here. But to be able to go serve in a completely different area, a completely different community, and just be exposed to the cultural differences down there, I think was something that the players and even I just took away so many life lessons and just things to be thankful for here, but also knowing that we made an impact and also were able to spread the gospel down there and just talk about our faith. It was a life-changing trip, and I think seeing how well it went and the girls who weren't able to go, just them enjoying seeing the pictures and hearing all the stories, it has made it really exciting to plan the next trip. And we don't know exactly who that's going to be with or where we're going to go yet, but it's something that I'm looking forward to continuing on in this program and letting whoever wants to go serve and spread the gospel in another country. So
that's great. That's great. So I have a little fun question for each of you. We'll start with you, Taylor. If I were to ask the pitchers on the softball team right now, that's who you're working with most closely, how would they describe you as a coach?
Oh man, I heard Katie chuckle. I definitely think they would describe me as probably a very honest coach. At least I hope they would, but also very encouraging. I like to give very honest feedback and kind of just like the compliment sandwich where it's like, I want to build you up, but then I also want to make you better, but then I'm still going to build you up in the end type deal. But then I also think they would, at least some of the pitcher onlys, they would definitely describe me as someone that focuses a lot on like strength and endurance as a pitcher as a whole. So it's great to hit spots. It's great to have spin, but if we can't last 6, 7 extra innings, if we need it, then it's not really what I'm going for. I want a strong pitcher. I want the whole package. And I think that's something that they would describe me as.
Katie, same question for you. How would your athletes describe you as a coach? And Taylor sitting right there, one of your former athletes. So
yeah, I was going to say, can I just
verify?
ask her?
She could verify if what you think is actually true. How would they describe you as a coach, do you think?
I would hope encouraging also, but challenging. I think just helping each of the girls try to reach their potential and doing that through encouragement and also just challenging them in their skills and helping them be better. I think those are the 2 words that come to mind. Taylor, you got any other words? Or those good?
No, I think that's a very, very accurate statement. I know I grew a lot in only the 3 years that I played for you. So I think those 2 very accurate words to describe you.
No, that's great. From my perspective, and Katie, I think you already know this. We've seen just a lot of growth, both in the culture of the team, but in performance as well in recent years. And looking forward to seeing what the team can do here in the next couple of years as well. So, yeah, excited about Houghton softball. I tell people all the time, I'm not a softball guy. My background's in another sport, which we have at Houghton. But when I show people the facilities, I say all the time, the softball stadium is the nicest of all of our stadiums. And I personally like to make use of that 3rd story in the softball tower to watch games sometimes and also get away and get some work done. But in any case, thanks, Taylor, for joining us today, and Katie for being with us. And thanks you all for watching.